He's Big Pimpin', Project Veritas, Jim. Okay.
Thank you very much for having me today. It's great to be here. It's an honor to be with you. Thank you, Charlie Kirk, for having me back to talk about Veritas, truth in Latin, and exposing the truth to make the world a more ethical and transparent place. So without further ado, I'm going to get started. And you know, one of the things that people say to me is, how can I make a difference? What can we do to make a difference? How do we make an impact in the world? And I'm going to tell you the story today of about half a dozen people who, just like you, sat in your seat and thought to themselves, I am so compelled to do something about the problems on my campus or my university, and I'm going to get started here. So I just want a show of hands. How many of you have ever questioned authority? Raise your hand. Well, that's a lot of people, almost 100%. Now, of those people, how many of you saw results from questioning authority?
No results.
Results? And how many of you video recorded those results? Not that many. Maybe a few, maybe a dozen. Any of those people release those videos? Couple, maybe 3, 4, 5. So we're going to talk about people like you. So if we could get the video on the screen here, I'm going to show you some examples of some of these things. So if the tech guy could come up and get the video on the screen, we'll show that. And I'm going to tell you a little story about Lucky Charms. I'm going to tell you a story about Lucky Charms. So I am an Irish American, and as you know, or an American. As you see on the front of the Lucky Charms cereal box, there appears to be a leprechaun. I'm 6 foot tall. He's, 4 foot tall. And the teeth-rotting marshmallows on the front of the cereal box. So when I was a student at Rutgers University, I decided to do something to expose the absurdity of the political correctness. I decided to make them live up to their own book of rules by not complaining about them, but by basically allowing them to be who they are. So I walked into the dining hall with this little cereal box and a copy of the campus speech codes that say you can't offend anyone for any reason. And I said to the dining official, I said, I would like this cereal removed from the cafeteria on the grounds that it's racist against the Irish. And to my shock, and I'm very, very difficult to maintain a straight face while doing this, as you'll see in this video. This is 2005, the year before YouTube even existed. We decided at the last minute to put a little recording device in the corner of the room with the dean at Rutgers University as we proceeded to tell them that the Irish people are offended by Lucky Charms and they should remove it from the cafeteria.
Greg said, we're from the Irish Heritage Foundation. It's not recognized by the university, but basically wanted to bring a matter to your concern that we noticed that, you're at the dining halls here at Rutgers serve Lucky Charms, and we think that this promotes negative stereotypes of Irish Americans, and we don't think it's acceptable in an academic setting, especially one of higher learning. And we brought a box for you to look at here, and there's what appears to be an Irish American on the front cover, and he's portrayed as a little green cladded gnome, a huckster, and we think that this undermines the importance and severity of St. Patrick's Day, especially during the month of March. So basically, what we're trying to do is appeal to.
So, can you tell me that again? You feel that he's portrayed as a...
I think he's portrayed as a little green, cladded gnome. And this is really, as you can see, we're not all short. I mean, but we have our differences of height, and we think it's stereotypical of all Irish Americans.
So, Rutgers banned Lucky Charms. Of course, they reinstated it once they found out that this was a form of irony. So, and people like Lucky Charms, and everyone. All right. But in all seriousness, because things are about to get serious. This is how we got started. Let's talk about what happens next. A young woman, no older than all of you, saw this and was inspired. And she went to Vassar College with a copy of the U.S. Constitution and said, "This is offensive to me. I'm offended by the Constitution. It should be banned from campus." And she went in to these campuses with a copy of the Constitution and said to the officials, "Please remove this from the university." And it's kind of funny when you confront these people with reality. Watch what happens at Vassar College.
I didn't think that this would happen, but I realized that the Constitution is kind of a trigger for me. Overall, I see it just as a really oppressive document. I mean, I'm like scared to walk around campus and see the Constitution. Honestly, can we just like, is there like a shredder or something? I think it might be like really therapeutic to see that.
Yep, I think we have a shredder in the front office there. Did you want to do it with me?
But something happened. The local media started to talk about this, and the local media was forced to talk about it. They were forced to talk about it because of the reaction of the university. They actually shredded copies of all the constitutions.
In national news this morning, a new video from an undercover journalist shows officials at a pair of colleges actually shredding the Constitution. In a video from James O'Keefe, who has helped expose issues at organizations like Acorn, an undercover journalist claims that someone passing out...
She was shredding the Constitution, and it was covered by the local media. Not by Fox News, not by conservative organizations, but by local news. And you'll see this pattern begin to emerge. Now, I want to take you fast forward. And like I said, I'm going to tell you stories of 6 people that I've met in my life who felt compelled to do something extraordinary. They cared so much, like many of you do, to make a difference. They were so compelled that they decided to do extraordinary things at oftentimes great self-peril, using this foundation of exposing them, sort of cinema verite. And I'm going to tell you the story about Hannah. I never met Hannah. She was 20 years old. We did some videos on Planned Parenthood, and she sent me a Facebook message, which I have memorialized here. And I've never met this person. And she just texted me and said, "Have you ever thought about doing something on this group called Acorn?" I never even heard of Acorn. Apparently they did housing work. They did some voter shenanigans. Barack Obama was an attorney for Acorn before he ran for president. So Hannah says, "I love the undercover thing." Never met this person before. She says, what if you went into Acorn dressed as a prostitute? And she said, you could sort of test them to see if they would go along with this criminal sort of ruse where you'd start brothels. Maybe there'd be multiple prostitutes. And I said, and most people get an anonymous Facebook message from someone like that, they delete it. What I did is I said, there should probably be a pimp in this question and answer situation. And I even asked Hannah, would you be willing to do this? There was no organization, there was no Project Veritas, there was no money. It was just 2 kids living at home with a dream. And Hannah said, yes, of course I'd love to do it. So we went around, I knocked on my grandmother's door, I got a chinchilla fur coat looking thing. This seriously was my grandmother's coat. And Hannah accoutered herself. She brought this costume, prostitution costume, and we proceeded to go around the United States to visit these government or pseudo-government organizations, and we produced videos, and they looked like this.
I wanna tell you about a girl I kissed. She was ridiculous, I mean picturesque, yeah.
And we went inside of these pseudo-government offices, and we said we wanted to start a business, not just any business, a business to encourage child prostitution. And she was dressed like that. And I wore a camera and a tie. They did not know that I was recording them, and these officials who were slated to receive billions of dollars of federal funding told us how to skirt the laws. And as you watch these clips, which some of you have seen, some of you haven't, just know that the New York Times spiked a front page story. That means canceled it at the last minute. between the election of McCain and Obama in 2008. A year later, we walk in off the street and record these officials doing and saying unconscionable things.
Prostitution?
Anything that the government's not getting money from is always against the law.
You might have to name it something else. Dancing?
It's not dancing, trust me.
But dancing is considered an art? I mean, you know,
sex is kind of like dancing, right?
Yeah, some great sex.
But the point is that there's going to be 13 El Salvadorian girls coming into this house.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want that to cause any trouble.
As far as
anything.
I support other return. You can use them as a dependent. So you can use them as a dependent because they live in your house. Okay, if they don't have Social Security numbers,
right,
then you don't have to worry because they can't file taxes anyway.
So
well, they're like 15.
Oh, well, then you don't worry about it.
The Acorn officials were telling us to use the underage prostitutes in this question and answer as dependents on the tax forms. Andrew Breitbart called it the Abu Ghraib of the Great Society. This is in Washington, D.C., where another office and another office and another office, boom, 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 we traveled around the country on our own, eating Quizno sandwiches, and just sort of two people taking it upon themselves. Listen to these officials talk to us about how to skirt the laws.
My partner is she's in a unique line of business, and I don't know if you allow
Unique line
housing.
of business, what are you saying? If you don't tell us, we can't help you.
My girlfriend's a prostitute.
Okay.
And I don't know if...
I kind of figured that. How far are you trying to go?
I'm using the money that she's getting, you know what I mean?
Okay, but you don't know where it's coming from.
I personally know where it's coming from.
Right, but when the police ask you, you don't know where it's coming from. Is what we're trying to tell you.
All right.
We're looking out for you.
When the police ask you, you don't know where the money is coming from, says these pseudo-government workers. This was a massive story. This was 9 years ago. Overnight, it was on every newspaper in the country. And everyone was saying, why didn't the press do this? This was Hannah, again, 20 years old. She was actually from Florida. She goes on, this is Glenn Beck's program in 2009, and everyone was asking, who paid you to do this? Who was behind this? Was the Koch brothers behind this? And this is what she said.
How old you are? 20?
I am 20, yes.
I just have to ask the question that, the other people would ask you, the first question. Who paid for all of this? Why are you doing it? Who are you working for?
I drained my savings to do this project.
She spent $1,000 of her own money to do something that the New York Times couldn't do no matter how many times they mortgaged their building. She did that. And I met Andrew Breitbart. I called him up on the phone. Everyone said, you gotta go talk to Andrew Breitbart. So I didn't know who he was. I knocked on his door, showed him the videos. He said, release the videos one at a time, because the media's gonna come out and say it's isolated, it's one incident. So we released a second, and a third, and a fourth, and a fifth. And the reaction from the media was, who paid for it? They could not understand. They can't even fathom that any of you would be here because you actually believe in what you're doing. To them, it's all a conspiracy. They just can't comprehend that there is fraud in the government that needs to be exposed. And not only are they not willing to do it, they're actually in the news suppression business. Because instead of actually talking about the comments that these people make in these hidden videos, their headline is, our claim is that we were independent. I insist that it was independent. And I was outraged by this. I had never seen this up close. You have to live it to fully understand how Stalinist our media actually is. Dennis Prager talks about it. It's unreal. But that didn't matter. The videos, and this is what I want to talk to you about, culture. Politics is actually downstream from the culture, and credit to Charlie Kirk and this organization, which is actually fighting a cultural battle, because that's where the war really lies. It couldn't, these days, I don't know, Comedy Central, but at the time, even Jon Stewart was scolding the press and saying, where the hell were you people? Why does it take 20-year-old people to do this?
Well, this is an impressive expose. I would love to know the intrepid journalist who broke this story. 60 Minutes, the AP, that guy who gets the Predators. I'm just telling the whole world, you're not a pimp, you're just playing one on our show.
I'm one of the
and you played it on those tapes.
Yeah, I'm one of the whitest guys ever.
Are you kidding me? First of all, you don't have to tell us you're a white guy. Your pimp costume appears to be a fur coat on top of your Andover uniform. Second of all, where were the real reporters on this story? You know what, investigative media? Give me a camera 3. Where the hell were you? You know who broke this story? These two. You're telling me that 2 kids from the cast of High School Musical 3 can break this story with a video camera and their grandmother's chinchilla coat, and you got nothing? They did it for $3,000. That's Blitzer's monthly beard wetback budget. It probably cost CNN that much just to turn on their hologram machine.
And we saw this, even South Park did a episode. This is what's the name of this character? Butters, thank you. You watch South Park. And they did a whole thing. I mean, Jay Leno, South Park did a thing.
And so, I would like to see if there are any housing loan opportunities for some of my employees, and also what kind of corporate tax I should be filing under.
And exactly what kind of business are you running?
It's a kissing company.
All right, get out of here.
Huh? Why?
I'm not falling for it.
But I heard Acorn helps pigeon the bitches.
So, politics, moral of the story, everyone, politics is downstream from the culture. And Congress defunded Acorn. Democrats did it, not Republicans, and President Obama signed the legislation.
Congress said they should cut off all funding for Acorn. Are you for that?
Is that true on the other side as well? Of course that's true.
How about the funding for Acorn?
You know, frankly, it's not really something I've followed closely. I didn't even know that Acorn was getting a whole lot of federal money.
Both the Senate and the House have voted to cut it off.
You know, what I know is that what I saw on that video was certainly inappropriate and deserves to be
investigated. So you're not committing to...
Inappropriate, said Obama. And the Washington Post was forced to print a retraction about our motivations. But then, and this is where things get tricky, when you do this, you get attacked, you get defamed, sometimes you even get arrested, you get sued. And it's very hurtful. And I heard Rush last night here say, you want to be loved. And it's true. People want to be loved. I want to be loved. You want to be loved. We want to be liked by our peers. If you do this, you will not be liked. You will not be loved. You will be hated by people who buy ink by the barrel. And I learned that. I sort of knew it going into it, but I had no idea the avalanche of hatred and animosity from George Stephanopoulos and Washington Post and these people, which are supposed to be, they're supposed to be the people that are the first draft of history. That's what journalism is supposed to be. What they are, I call them political marketing industry executives. And I go on TV with Andrew Breitbart, there's the legendary Andrew Breitbart, and they attack me. And I didn't even know Stephanopoulos would do what he did. But there I am sitting there at a loss for words.
This is the type of journalism that we do, is to counter the false narratives and the slurs that happen like that from political operatives like Max Blumenthal, like Joan Walsh at Salon, who use journalism as a platform to slur James O'Keefe. It's not true.
And they're coming after us, and we're fighting back. And Andrew Breitbart was this man who was so good and adept at fighting in the trench with these people. You have to fight. You have to fight back. When they sue me, and they're suing me, and that not necessarily because they want to protect the plaintiff behind the case, but just to shut me up and silence me. You can't give them an inch. You have to fight back. And that was Acorn. And there we were, just 2 people. But it goes on. It goes on. Because after this happened, thousands of people said, I want to do this too. Thousands of people. We had to awaken sort of a sleeping giant. People around the country said, I want to do that. Not everyone, and by the way, there's different ways to make a difference. But people said, that's where I belong. I want to expose these people. I want to catch them in private lying. And that's what people started to do. I'm going to fast forward. I'm going to show you 4 other instances of people who were inspired. These are not public people. We are the only journalism organization in the United States, as far as I know, that do this. People don't have bylines. They're anonymous. Nobody knows they're out there. Project Veritas is kind of like germs all over the United States. And these people, this is a young woman who, she went to Hillsdale College, and she went, Hillsdale? And she went undercover to speak with people in the government. This was last summer, the deep state, and she found communists in the government who were doing illegal things.
Technically, everything I'm doing with the SA is stuff I'm not supposed to be doing for work. So like, it's explicitly prohibited. So like, if they find out, I can get in trouble basically. Especially if somebody finds out and is like, oh, you know you have a socialist at your organization, I can get fired. I mean, I can already be fired. It would be fireable though. At any point, I could get fired. I would get fired if they knew that I was.
Well, let's just say that Nate Sumerian was fired. But there's like 1,000 more where that came from. She also recorded someone inside the Department of Justice. People say it's a conspiracy, what's happening in there? Targeting people. There's no equality before the law. Well, this undercover reporter actually caught this woman talking about targeting people and scanning license plates. That made the Washington Post. This person was disciplined and ultimately let go from the Department of Justice, and that made the Washington Post, what this undercover reporter did. Another undercover reporter, this is this year, inside the Senate race. This person goes undercover into the Phil Bredesen campaign. Anyone from Tennessee here? Tennessee? Some Tennesseans? She actually spoke with Phil Bredesen, spent a couple of months inside his office.
Is it because of, like, the voters?
Yeah, that's it.
So he'll lose voters if he says yes?
Oh, straight up. Yeah.
Are the people of Tennessee that ignorant?
Yeah.
Calling the voters ignorant, saying he would lie. It was covered by all the local media stations.
The latest spark in what's turning out to be an explosive campaign.
After an undercover video alleged to be from inside Phil Bredesen's campaign.
Controversy is brewing in Tennessee over a video.
Now it's a highly edited undercover video hasn't yet been authenticated.
This morning, an undercover video.
Every local TV station in Tennessee covered it. Do you know how much that this undercover reporter paid these networks to talk about these videos? Zero. Not a single dollar was spent. But catching the people in the act. See, the truth is like a lion. You just show it and it just roars. And it forces the local media to cover it. Well, let's move. By the way, this really had an impact on the election. She may have actually changed the election in Tennessee, this young person. Let me give you another example. These people, nobody knows who they are. No one, as far as I'm concerned, will ever know who they are. We'll appeal it to the Supreme Court if anybody tries to ask me. Talks to the McCaskill campaign, who's from Missouri. And this is hilarious. He's undercover in the McCaskill campaign, and they're all like, dude, there's so many people from this Veritas project out there recording. Thank God you're not one of them.
I have a funny story for you, but how you doing, bud?
What funny story?
So they thought you were a Republican tracker for the longest time because you kept appearing in different places following Jason Kander.
Oh my God, that's so weird.
So I'm like, hey, well, if you are, you did a damn good job at it.
You ever heard of the Veritas Project?
Yeah, that's true. Like the one on the door.
Huh?
The what?
The Veritas Project? Or Project Veritas?
No, what is that?
It's basically a Republican spy group that likes to go into places and try and just like record people doing stupid shit.
Do they think you're that stupid?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they actually do.
Wow.
Yeah.
But like,
unfortunately, people fall for that.
So, we're inside their heads. By the way, if you're not defrauding or lying or stealing, you shouldn't be concerned. But this man, Nick Starost, who worked for Claire McCaskill, was defrauding and lying because he made this statement. He was about to become an internet celebrity. Watch this.
They essentially have the same views on everything. You know,
People just can't know. that Obama and McCaskill have the same views. He even got access to the senator herself as he talked to her about the Second Amendment and guns and the need to ban them, and forced Claire McCaskill into a forced stare and a reaction from the senator. More undercover journalists here in the state of Florida. In Florida. This is the Andrew Gillum campaign. And by the way, if you think that this is just something that 20 and 22 and 25-year-olds do, here's a 59-year-old and a 67-year-old. Old enough to be your parents, old enough maybe to be some of your grandparents. Go into the office and speak to one of Gillum's own staffers. This is, see, people don't like me saying this, but I think this guy's the most interesting character we've ever come across. A guy named Omar Smith, who worked for Gillum. And Omar admits, again, he doesn't know he's being recorded. He says, it's all fairy tales what this guy Gillum is saying here in Florida. It's not going to actually happen. He repeats this sort of fable over and over again into our hidden camera. Listen to this.
I will absolutely not raise taxes on everyday working Floridians to give access to additional
What about wealthier people?
So what I said, and I ran on this, by the way, is that we will increase taxes for corporations in our state.
So then none of the programs that people are hoping for would happen?
Basically.
Well, do voters know that?
I know.
Do voters know that?
That's not for them to know.
Huh?
That's not for them to know. Remember I was saying?
I know exactly.
Modern day fairy tales start with once I am elected.
Repeats it over and over again. Modern day fairy tales exist with once I'm elected. The other reporter, age 59, flies in the day before we release the video to talk to Omar, and suddenly, out of nowhere, he starts describing how he really views the people of Florida.
All right, this is a bad state.
Okay.
It's a cracker state.
Okay.
Okay? Ask anybody outside of here, you go Port St. Lucie, Orlando, man, them crackers ain't gonna let us do that, dog. No, you crazy?
All right, now this is for real. A guy who Gillum went to college with is calling his policies fairy tales, using racial slurs against voters, and you know what? Within a few hours, Gillum fired his own staffer.
When I became aware of his comments, we gave instruction to immediately sever ties with him as a vendor. I find his comments deeply regrettable.
That is how these people make a difference. And it was in the New York Times. This is in the New York Times. By the way, if it is not in the New York Times, the people that you disagree with don't know that it even exists. You have to get covered by the mainstream media. And it's bloody, and it's difficult, and they criticize you. But I'm going to tell you the story this is sort of the most interesting story. This is the most interesting story. This is an unbelievable story that you won't even believe, but truth is stranger than fiction. This is the 2016 presidential election between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And a young woman whose name I can say, she's from Minnesota. How many Minnesotans here? She started a newspaper in college. She took the initiative to do something about it. And then she said, I'm going to investigate the lies and the fraud inside the Hillary Clinton campaign. So let's see what happens. She goes to Iowa in the summer of 2016 with a little camera and goes into the office, but she fails. She gets what we call in the undercover work burned or blown or compromised. Maybe you've known about some of our burns and compromises. The media loves to focus on them. It happens. It's the law of odds. It's probably going to happen. It's happened to me 100 times. It's happened to our reporters constantly. But it kind of blows up in her face. She goes into the office. She tries to volunteer.
Yeah, sorry about that. So I got news from my boss that you're not allowed in any Hillary for Iowa offices or events anymore.
So she gets found out. She also tries to go to Wisconsin to get involved with the campaign, and she gets blown again.
Can you tell us if you're working for anyone in particular?
Not really going to answer any questions.
You're reporting us?
Not really going to answer any questions.
Okay.
But
then we are going to ask you to leave.
Okay.
And unfortunately prohibit you from coming back to the campaign.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Cool. Well, it was great meeting you.
It's a weird thing to say at the end there. She gets blown twice, and she could have given up because Time magazine tried to humiliate her. She even made the Huffington Post woman caught trying to get inside campaign. She could have given up, and let me tell you something, it's not fun. It hurts. And this is the biggest, I would say, the biggest risk to doing this sort of thing is if you're doing this on your campus, your professor could give you a failing grade on your paper. But the way to solve that, the way to respond, is not to back down, but to double down. And this young woman, 22 years old, she was even chased down the street by these activists calling her great names, and you know, they tend to be very sexist, calling her these words. I mean, it's so hard to do this. Just listen to these people.
You're the bad guy. You're the bad guy.
You've been creamed!
She's chased down the street. She's humiliated in the Huffington Post, targeted by Time magazine, but Allison does not give up. Allison is one of those rare people out there, the few people out there who care so much about exposing this stuff that they'll do it at great cost to themselves. They will do it at cost to their own reputations. Allison decides to have someone pose as a donor to a man named Bob Creamer. I know Charlie Kirk knows who Bob Creamer is. He's from Chicago. He's married to Jan Schakowsky. He's best friends with Barack Obama. And an uncle says he's going to donate to Creamer, and Allison pretends to be the niece. Gets invited by Bob Creamer to the office of Bob Creamer at the height of the campaign, and overhears and films Hillary Clinton's own officials talking about doing illegal, unethical, unconscionable things, inciting violence at Trump rallies.
If you're there and you're protesting and you do these actions, you will be attacked at Trump rallies. That's what we know.
Hillary is aware of all the work that you guys do, I hope.
The campaign is fully in it.
And then they tell Hillary what's going on.
Well, I mean, Hillary knows chain of command.
Yeah.
The campaign pays DNC. DNC pays Democracy Partners. Democracy Partners pays the Fogel Group. The Fogel Group goes and executes on the ground.
I'm not suggesting we wait around. We need to start the right away.
In the end, it was the candidate, Hillary Clinton, the future president of the United States, who wanted ducks on the ground. So by God, we will give ducks on the ground. And,
so it's... Wow.
Don't repeat that to anybody, please. Wow. Don't repeat that to anybody.
Yeah, don't repeat that to anybody. It was repeated to like 50 million people. He was even mentioned on CNN.
Video emerging of a group of pro-Clinton political operatives talking about stirring up trouble and provoking violence at Trump rallies. The video comes from Project Veritas, brainchild of James O'Keefe, who's got a less than stellar reputation for accuracy. However, some of the things you'll hear on the tape are certainly hard to ignore. Enough we're learning for one person to be fired so far, another to resign. A lot of questions being asked about the recording.
People in airports that look up at the chyrons, those dreaded CNN chyrons, they see that chyron. They see people fired. And it was even mentioned in the presidential debates.
I have a feeling how they came. I believe it was her campaign that did it. Just like if you look at what came out today on the clips, where I was wondering what happened with my rally in Chicago and other rallies where we had such violence. She's the one in Obama that caused the violence. They hired people, they paid them $1,500, and they're on tape saying, be violent, cause fights, do bad things.
Deciding not to give up. And the truth is, I mean, this was watched by 80 million people. This is a very big deal. This is the most watched presidential debate in American history. And you want to know the moral of the story, is Allison is in this audience somewhere. One of you is the next Allison. There's probably multiple Allisons, and you may not even know it, because you haven't, no one sort of told you that you can do this, that the obstacles that face you are not big enough to prevent you from doing this. I think the most amazing thing about what Allison did is that it made the A section of the New York Times. And the headline was not biased. The headline was actually a very decent headline. Videos force Democrats on defense. They even took a screen capture of the YouTube video and put it in the A section of the New York Times. I have a dream, okay, that this is going to happen every day. That this is going to happen every single day. And you can call me a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. There are a bunch of people out there right now making sure that that's how you change things, by the way, people. That's how you change things. You've got to get in the media. You have to get covered by the mainstream media. You have to speak to them. You have to reach them. You have to make them go, oh my God. You have to make people that disagree with you see the truth. You have to shake them, and they're going to attack you for it. But it doesn't matter, because the truth shall set you free. And that was Allison 6 months earlier, head between her legs, could have been that way, could have said, I give up, this is too hard. Never give up. Have the courage to continue. Have the courage to fight. Have the courage to keep going, because that's what investigative journalists do. Now, there's many different ways to contribute to society. This is not the only way. I'm not saying that this is the only way. I'm saying this is a way. And as far as I know, it's the one of the few ways that's so highly leveraged that you can actually change elections, force resignations, change hearts and minds. Some of the voter fraud stuff that these people have done has changed people's minds. But there's different ways to give back to society. You can go to law school, you can join the armed service, you can run for office. And I think that we do need people to run for office. But politics, my friends, politics is way, way downstream from the culture. The culture informs people. The culture gives people the information to make the decisions. So in many ways, political leaders derive their power from an informed people. So real power to make a difference comes in informing your people. And you cannot just inform them with the written word. Images transfix in a way that words do not. You have to show them the truth in a visceral way they cannot deny. And Andrew Breitbart taught me something. The late Andrew Breitbart said that you can force the media to cover things they won't talk about. Maybe we're doing it once in a while, but we can do it more often. This is not just stenography. This is not just writing down what people say. This is a performance art. You're actually changing how people perceive the world around them by getting covered by the media. And that's what these 5 or 6 people I have shown you over the years did. Armed with a video camera and a lot of courage. And you're out there. So I would again, and by the way, here's a picture of them. There's a lot of them. They're growing like a virus. They're growing. They're spreading. They're spreading throughout society. If you're stealing, abusing, lying, cheating, these people will find you and make you the next unwilling internet celebrity at Project Veritas. And how do you get involved? The few of you who are wanting to do this, how can you get involved? Well, there's the website. We're going to be having a book signing after this. We're going to have sign-up sheets. We're going to allow you to get involved. Some of you heard of our Twitter investigation, exposing shadow banners. Remember those? We'll be giving out these hats, exposing the engineers inside Silicon Valley companies, admitting that they're targeting people, admitting that they're targeting Dennis Prager, and saying, but nobody can know that. That's what these people are doing. I'm going to throw some hats out to you. It's like a Frisbee. So, I've got just 2 minutes left. I want to say a personal story. I want to tell you about one man that's meant a lot to me. This is a video of a man who had a big impact on my life. He's part of the greatest generation. He is one of the last, he's in his 90s now. He's one of the last remaining people in the United States who knows how to repair a mechanical apple peeling machine. There he is. He built these things in the 1940s, drafted all the parts. His name is Robert McAfee. He's from Rochester, New York. And there's the apple peeling machines. Sort of a bygone era, but there are people in our lives who instill in us virtue and courage and, you know, doing the right thing. So Robert McAfee is actually my grandfather. And he is here today. Mr. McAfee?
Take a second here. James had asked me to say a few words about our relationship.
I was a scout leader for many years. 248, New York State. Anyway, James was a scouter, and I just have a little story to tell about James and how I feel about him. James is a great man. He's doing a great service to people who need to have the story told. So here's the story. It may or may not be true. You're looking at pictures of the apple peeling machine down there. That's funny. Anyway, it's true. I worked at a factory that made machines that peeled and cored and sliced 80 apples in a minute. And you put the apples in the machine by hand. James, I'm going to tell you a story about you and I. You were in scout troop. I was in scout master, what I call it. And every day we would go around and inspect each tent. Each troop had maybe 6 or 8 members in it, and you and I would go into the ground in the tent, and we open the curtain, the tent, open the curtain, walk in, and you walk around the outside to inspect to see if it was clean or in orderly shape. I, on the other hand, did the smart thing. I sat in front of the place. I want you to pull me up the stage and listen to this, okay? Okay. You, on the other hand, walked around the outside of that dirty tent looking for dirt. James, it's much easier to find the fruit that's right in front of you than trying to find all that dirt.
Well said. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you afterwards.